In the previous lecture, we talked about the importance of time of the lesson and that the time of the lesson should be directed to students' progress and achievement by presenting rich content and language materials, language activities. So the time of the lesson should be directed to instructing the students and not to dealing with behavior problems which are conducted by the students. Before we discuss the problem of behavior or indiscipline in the classroom, let us know what is meant by misbehavior or behavior problem. Misbehavior is defined as actions or conduct that's inappropriate, improper, incorrect, or unexpected. So, misbehavior is a student's behavior that interferes with teaching and prevents teachers from accomplishing their goals. What is the goal of teachers? The goal of teachers is students' achievement and success, students' progress, students' knowledge. In this case, misbehavior prevents teachers from accomplishing their goals. It is important for teachers to distinguish behaviors which are real disruptive or considered as discipline problems. Sometimes we have very simple behaviors which are not acceptable to the extent that they should not be considered as a behavioral problem and dealt with. So we should distinguish only real behavioral problems that disturb teaching. They need to decide which behavior is not just disruptive to them personally, but truly disruptive to their teaching and learning of the class, and thus viewed as real discipline problems. So, what is to be viewed as a real discipline problem is the problem that distracts teaching and learning. So, this is the condition that makes the teacher decide that this activity is a real discipline problem. Misbehavior or behavioral problem in the class refers to all externalizing behaviors that violate the explicit rules or implicit norms. What's meant by this? This means that the teacher gives the students rules that they should work according to from the beginning of the teaching process. So students know the boundaries, they know the rules, and they should not violate the rules. The classroom and so behavior behaviors that violate explicit rules or implicit norms disrupt the classroom order and irritate the process of teaching and learning. Some behavior problems affect teaching and learning, example chatting, whereas others affect self-teaching, example daydreaming. Chatting with chatting will alter the whole class atmosphere as well as the class progress. The teacher needs to stop chatting, otherwise he or she cannot teach and the students will miss the content of the lesson. So there are different types of misbehavior. Sometimes the behavior or misbehavior, the behavioral problem influences teaching and learning, such as chatting. So the teacher should stop chatting, while daydreaming influences the students himself or herself. That's why its effect is less than the effect of chatting. In, in all cases, we should deal with behavioral problems. Students' behavior is influenced by and connected to teachers' behavior. So, when we talk about behavior in the classroom, it is not related to students' behavior only, but it's also related to teachers' behavior. The way the teacher behaves in the classroom influences students' behavior. Since some of the factors that contribute to non-compliance in the classroom are related to teachers' behavior and reactions, teachers need to manage their own reactions for effective management of students' behavior. In order to manage our students' behavior effectively, we should control our own reactions and behaviors in relation to all what happens in the classroom. Teachers' behavior has the biggest influence on behavior of students. This requires them to manage their own behavior first and foremost. Teachers must establish what they want from the students by demonstrating it very clearly with their own behavior. If you want good behavior, you need to behave in a good way. You need to be a model for your students in behavior so that the students will follow you. They look at teachers' behaviors and interpret those behaviors as signs of teachers' attitudes about them. So, teachers' behaviors, such as organizing the beginning of the lesson, fostering of interpersonal relationships, and planning the lesson carefully contribute to the state of discipline in the classroom. What do we mean by discipline? We mean good behavior problem, a good state of behavior in relation particularly to students' behavior. So, the teacher should be careful about planning the lesson, the way he behaves at the beginning of the lesson, the development of interpersonal relationships. We talked about this. So, in this case, the teacher will be successful in managing students' behavior. Types of behavior problems that might take place in a lesson. Misbehavior can be observed in the classroom in different forms. It ranges from small annoying disruptness to those that are life-threatening. Teachers' list of classroom misbehavior includes whistling, making inappropriate sounds, ignoring or not listening to the teacher, passing notes, daydreaming, talking during instructions, etc. Of course, the list of misbehaviors or the type of behavior problems that might take place is endless. We have a very large number of variable types of behavior problems which are different from one place to the other, from one situation to the other. And in different places, we can find different types of misbehavior according to the students. Let us say uh, situation, personalities, age, different factors. The most common types of behavioral problems that teachers observe in the class are the following: playing with a ruler, a pencil, or any other objects, ignoring or not listening to the teacher or other students during instruction, during language practice, passing notes, chewing gum, talking during instruction, asking inappropriate and uh, insincere questions, the back row distractors, the non-participants, aggression toward other students, damage of the classroom furniture, challenges to teachers' authority. So these are different types of behavior problems that might face the teacher during the lesson. Different types, as I have mentioned, according to student situation. Now, up to this point, we talked about behavior problems as a problem that face language teachers. How can we deal with this problem as teachers? There are two ways of dealing with the problem of misbehavior in the classroom. First, the teacher should work on preventing classroom misbehavior by using different factors. So it's better to prevent behavioral problems than to react to them. In this case, there are certain techniques used by the teacher in order to, let us say, minimize behavioral problems. The first idea is to plan the lesson in a good way. We talked about good planning. to plan the lesson in a way that the students will be engaged in classroom activities so that they will not have enough time to, uh, let us say, behavior problems or to be distracting to themselves and to other students. Also, a good instruction participates in preventing behavior problems if you instruct your students in a correct way, in a good way. If the students understand what is required from them, this will work on reducing behavior problems. We have also talked about this and discussed the idea of a classroom instruction. One half of a classroom time can be taken up with activities other than instruction. Thus, teachers should use effective strategies that allow them more instructional time and less management of behavioral troubles. In this case, it is very important to work on providing the students with language material than to work with behavior problems. The first and most important strategy to be is to be proactive rather than reactive. This means that the teacher should try to prevent behavior problems instead of dealing with them. Teachers need to work on preventing behavior problems rather than dealing with them. Teachers should focus on preventing conflicts and disruptions rather than punishing misbehavior. The most successful teachers in maintaining discipline are those who know how to prevent the arising of the problems in the first place. So, you should be successful in preventing problems before they happen in the classroom. One of the techniques used to prevent behavior problems is the use of extinction technique, which or this technique is related to dealing only with important problems. During the lesson, we should not deal with all problems. As I have mentioned, we should distinguish between problems that disturb teaching and learning and other problems which are less important. This technique is related to minor misbehaviors and how they should be handled by teachers. Effective teachers are skilled at spotting and expressing a minor disturbance before it builds up into a major depression. Not all behaviors that teachers find disruptive should be handled with an assertive response, and that some disruptive behaviors shouldn't be reprimanded on the spot but handled in a different way. So, you should not deal with all errors. You should deal only with errors that may cause real problems in the classroom. Thus, some scholars suggest the use of extinction technique, which indicates ignoring minor negative behavior so that it is not provided with much attention. Also, you can prevent behavior problems by putting rules and procedures. What is meant by rules? I have just discussed this idea that you should give your students rules of behaving in the classroom, how to behave inside the classroom, to tell them what is acceptable and what is not acceptable, what's expected to be done and what is not expected, so that they should work according to these rules. One of the most important preventative strategies is the use of rules and procedures. Rules are things created by the teacher to control the behavior of the students, which could be useful and acceptable to some students, or they represent a negative experience associated with feelings of negation and control. Of course, when you introduce rules, Some students accept them and think that they are an important part of the classroom behavior, while others do not accept them. Students are not equal in their reactions, but in all cases, you have to introduce the students with rules according to which they behave. Rules are important for students' understanding of behavioral and learning expectations explicitly, so they can understand clearly what is acceptable and what is not acceptable. And rules give students the structure they need and help them to feel that the classroom is a safe and predictable place, that they can predict what is accepted and what is not accepted. They also make a distinction between rules and procedures, expressing that both rules and procedures refer to stated expectations about the student's behavior. In all cases, we have rules and procedures. So, what is the difference between them? Both of them refer to expectations about the student's behavior, but they differ in an important way. A rule identifies general expectations or standards, while the procedure communicates expectations for specific behaviors. If we have certain specific actions, so the teacher uses procedures. Both rules and procedures should be implemented in the classroom from the beginning to express teachers' expectations for behavior. So, if you have rules, you have to tell your students about such rules at the beginning of the teaching process. From the first lesson, these are the rules that you should follow in my lesson so that the students know what you want them to do. For example, beginning and ending the class day, transitions and group work. Transitions means the movement from one activity to the other. So the students should know that they don't have much time in transition and they should move from one activity to the other activity quietly without distracting and so on. And also group work, the students should know the members of each group. So when you ask them to work in groups, they know what is required from them and they do this without any problem. Early establishment of rules is an effective strategy that make the class manageable. So it is important to have the rules at the beginning or in early stages of language teaching. Announcing the rules is not enough. Modeling and practicing are important for the students' understanding of what is expected of them. Teachers must model the behavior they want. They should model commitment, promptness, and enthusiasm for learning, active listening. So, in this case, the teacher should be a model of good behavior so that the students can follow the teacher. The teacher should never be late to the class so that the students can follow the teacher in this, let us say, behavior and they are not late for the class. Because people believe in actions much more than they believe in words. If you see that the teacher is a good example of a classroom or of behavior, so they will follow this example. Finally, rules and procedures should not be imposed on students. They should be created with students. Sometimes I mentioned that some students accept the rules and others do not accept them and they feel that the teacher tries to control them. In this case, it's better to discuss rules and to tell the students why these rules are available, to negotiate rules with the students so that the students who might not accept the rules will have better way of accepting these rules. Effective teachers take time to explain the reasons behind a particular rule and procedure. We can frame behaviors that we jointly consider to be appropriate for the classroom by discussion and negotiation with the students. This implies a partnership with them so the teacher can remind them about any of the agreed rules.